Imagine waking up one morning to an Earth completely transformed. The oceans, which span more than 70% of the planet's surface, have frozen solid overnight. This isn't just a simple wintertime freeze, it's an apocalyptic transformation, with far-reaching consequences. To truly grasp how life on Earth would change under these circumstances, we need to start by understanding the vital role oceans play in maintaining our planet's delicate balance. The oceans are far more than vast bodies of water. They are the engine that keeps our planet alive. By absorbing and redistributing heat from the sun, oceans regulate global temperatures and drive weather patterns. Without them, the Earth's climate system would be thrown into chaos. Their currents act like conveyor belts, moving warm water from the equator to the poles and circulating colder water back. This continuous motion ensures relatively stable temperatures around the globe, allowing ecosystems to thrive. If all the oceans froze overnight, this heat distribution would stop immediately. The equator, no longer cooled by ocean currents, would become unbearably hot. Meanwhile, regions farther from the equator would experience extreme and relentless cold. Weather patterns that we've come to recognize, such as predictable rain seasons or coastal breezes, would vanish, replaced by erratic and destructive storms. The visual of frozen oceans alone is enough to inspire awe and dread. From horizon to horizon, sheets of ice would stretch endlessly, reflecting sunlight instead of absorbing it. This would accelerate global cooling, as ice is far more reflective than water. Known as the albedo effect, this feedback loop could quickly plunge the planet into a deep freeze, turning even the most temperate regions into icy wastelands. One of the first and most profound impacts of frozen oceans would be on marine life. Oceans are teeming with biodiversity, from microscopic plankton to massive whales. These organisms depend on liquid water for survival. Plankton, which form the base of the oceanic food chain, would vanish almost immediately, triggering a cascade of extinctions. Marine ecosystems, built over millions of years, would collapse in an instant. In addition to marine life, the freezing of the oceans would directly impact the air we breathe. Phytoplankton, tiny organisms that live near the ocean's surface, produce about half of the oxygen in Earth's atmosphere through photosynthesis. With the oceans frozen and these organisms wiped out, oxygen levels would begin to decline, making survival even more challenging for land-dwelling creatures, including humans. This chilling scenario of frozen oceans sets the stage for even greater challenges that humanity would face. In the next part, we'll explore the domino effect this event would have on human societies, economies, and the planet's ecosystems. From food supply chains to the collapse of global trade, the repercussions of this catastrophic event would redefine life as we know it. With the oceans frozen solid, the cascading effects on human society would be nothing short of catastrophic. Almost overnight, the systems and infrastructure we rely on daily would begin to unravel, leaving humanity in a state of unprecedented crisis. Let's delve deeper into how this frozen world would transform our lives in ways we've never imagined. One of the immediate consequences would be the collapse of the global food supply. Oceans are not only home to marine life, but also a cornerstone of human sustenance. Over 3 billion people worldwide depend on seafood as their primary source of protein. Entire fishing industries would be obliterated, leaving communities that rely on the ocean for food and livelihood in desperate circumstances. But the impact doesn't stop there. Ocean-based economies, which include industries like tourism, shipping, and aquaculture, contribute trillions of dollars annually to the global economy. With the oceans frozen, these industries would grind to a halt, leading to mass unemployment and economic collapse. Global trade, which relies heavily on ocean transportation, would face an unprecedented crisis. Over 90% of the world's goods are transported by sea, from essential food and medical supplies to raw materials used in manufacturing. Without navigable oceans, ships would remain immobilized in ports, causing supply chains to fracture. Nations that rely on imports to sustain their populations would face severe shortages of essential goods, plunging millions into poverty and hunger. As if these challenges weren't enough, the Earth's climate would spiral into further chaos. With the oceans frozen, the planet's ability to absorb and moderate carbon dioxide levels would cease entirely. The oceans currently act as one of the largest carbon sinks, absorbing nearly 1/3 of all human-produced carbon dioxide. Without this mechanism, greenhouse gases would remain trapped in the atmosphere, amplifying the effects of climate change. Paradoxically, while the surface would freeze, atmospheric conditions could become increasingly volatile, with extreme storms and weather anomalies wreaking havoc across the globe. This drastic change would also disrupt freshwater availability. Over 2/3 of the Earth's freshwater supply is tied to the hydrological cycle, which depends on the continuous evaporation and precipitation facilitated by oceans. A frozen ocean would halt this cycle, leading to severe droughts in some regions and devastating floods in others, as weather patterns shift unpredictably. Major rivers and lakes that rely on consistent precipitation would dry up, further threatening water supplies for drinking, agriculture, and industry. In this frozen reality, life for humans would become increasingly fragile. Crops would struggle to grow in the harsh new climate, and the soil, deprived of consistent moisture, would lose its fertility. Agricultural yields would plummet, and nations around the globe would face widespread food shortages. Social unrest would likely erupt as communities fought over dwindling resources, leading to instability and conflict on a global scale. The interconnectedness of our world means that a frozen ocean would ripple through every aspect of life, revealing just how much humanity depends on the stability of our planet's natural systems. As we've now explored the immediate societal impacts, the next part will delve into the long-term environmental changes and the grim reality of adapting to a planet where the oceans remain frozen. The long-term environmental impacts of frozen oceans would reshape Earth into a world nearly unrecognizable from the one we know. Over time, the planet's ecosystems and climates would adapt, or collapse, under the weight of this unprecedented change, setting off a chain reaction of consequences that would ripple through every aspect of the natural world. Let's explore how life on Earth would attempt to survive and the new challenges that would arise. A critical issue would be the disruption of the ocean's role in regulating the planet's temperature. In our current world, ocean currents act like massive conveyor belts, moving warm water from the equator toward the poles and colder water back toward the equator. This system, called thermohaline circulation, helps stabilize global temperatures. Without liquid oceans, this essential process would stop entirely. Regions near the equator would become unbearably hot, while areas closer to the poles would sink into perpetual deep freeze. This stark temperature divide would make large parts of the planet uninhabitable for both humans and wildlife. The extinction crisis that began immediately after the oceans froze would intensify over the years. Entire marine ecosystems would have already been wiped out, but the absence of these ecosystems would start to affect terrestrial life as well. Coastal habitats, which support diverse wildlife and vegetation, would be obliterated as frozen oceans encroach on land. Species that depend on these habitats, from seabirds to coastal predators, would face extinction without access to food or viable nesting areas. The loss of biodiversity would create ripple effects throughout the food web, destabilizing ecosystems on a massive scale. On land, ecosystems would struggle to adapt to the new climate conditions. Forests, grasslands, and wetlands are all intricately linked to the water cycle, which would be profoundly altered by the absence of liquid oceans. Rainfall patterns would become erratic and extreme, creating vast deserts in some regions and excessive flooding in others. Vegetation that depends on consistent rainfall, like crops and forests, would begin to die off, leading to soil erosion and desertification. The loss of plant life would reduce the planet's ability to absorb carbon dioxide, further exacerbating atmospheric instability. The frozen oceans would also create physical challenges for the planet itself. Ice expands as it forms, so the vast expanses of frozen water would begin exerting immense pressure on the Earth's crust. This could lead to an increase in seismic and volcanic activity as the planet adjusts to the added stress. Earthquakes might become more frequent and more severe, while dormant volcanoes could erupt unexpectedly. These geological events would add yet another layer of destruction to an already struggling world. Human attempts to adapt would bring their own set of challenges. As the frozen oceans created a landmass of ice, nations might try to exploit this new terrain for resources. However, any attempts to drill or mine beneath the ice would be fraught with danger. The unstable environment, combined with the difficulty of operating in extreme cold, would make such endeavors costly and hazardous. Additionally, competition for resources could lead to conflict, as countries vied for control over whatever scarce materials were left. One of the more chilling possibilities is the feedback loop created by the frozen oceans. As the ice reflects sunlight back into space, the planet would continue to cool. This could plunge Earth into a snowball state, where even land masses would freeze over, leaving only a thin band near the equator habitable for life. In such a scenario, surviving species, if any, would be forced to adapt rapidly or face extinction. Humanity would need to retreat to this narrow strip of land, relying on technology and ingenuity to eke out a precarious existence. In this frozen world, the concept of seasons would largely vanish. With no ocean currents to drive the cycle of warm and cold, many regions would be locked in unchanging climates. This would have far-reaching effects on agriculture, migration patterns, and even human culture, which has been shaped for millennia by the changing of the seasons. As we look at these grim possibilities, it's clear that the frozen oceans would not only alter life as we know it, but also challenge the very essence of survival itself. In the final part, we'll examine the ultimate fate of this frozen Earth, the potential for recovery, and whether humanity and the planet could ever find a path back to stability. As centuries pass on this frozen Earth, the chances of recovery grow slimmer, and humanity's attempts to adapt become increasingly desperate. The frozen oceans, once vital to the planet's stability, have created an unrelenting and hostile environment. The very essence of Earth's ecosystems has been fundamentally altered, and the possibility of returning to the world as it once was seems more like a distant memory than an achievable reality. One of the most pressing challenges would be humanity's search for sustainable energy. With frozen oceans cutting off access to offshore oil and gas reserves, alternative energy sources would need to be developed and expanded rapidly. Solar power, while viable in equatorial regions, would struggle in areas locked in perpetual cold and cloud cover. Wind energy could offer some relief, but the extreme weather conditions would make maintaining turbines nearly impossible. Efforts to harness geothermal energy might increase, but such ventures would remain limited to specific regions, creating disparities between nations with access to resources and those without. Survival would also hinge on humanity's ability to engineer new agricultural systems. Traditional farming methods would be rendered obsolete as arable land continues to shrink under extreme conditions. Innovations like vertical farming, hydroponics, and lab-grown food would dominate. But these systems require immense energy and technological infrastructure. Many nations would lack the means to implement these solutions, creating a divide between technologically advanced societies and those left behind to fend for themselves. With the oceans now a vast frozen expanse, travel and communication would also evolve in unprecedented ways. Air travel would remain possible, but would require vast amounts of energy and resources. Overland routes across the ice might develop, but they would be fraught with dangers like crevasses and unpredictable ice shifts. In the harshest climates, humanity might retreat into enclosed cities or underground habitats, designed to protect inhabitants from the freezing temperatures and the instability of the surface. Meanwhile, the natural world would continue its slow, silent transformation. In some places, life might adapt to the cold in unexpected ways. Species capable of surviving in extreme conditions, such as microorganisms and cold-adapted insects, could thrive, gradually filling ecological niches left vacant by the disappearance of larger organisms. Over time, entirely new ecosystems could emerge, ones built around the unique challenges of a frozen planet. These new forms of life would bear little resemblance to what once existed, representing a stark reminder of how profoundly the planet has changed. The psychological toll on humanity would be immense. Generations born into this frozen world would know nothing of liquid oceans, green fields, or temperate climates. Cultural expressions would shift to reflect the new reality, with art, music, and literature depicting themes of survival and endurance rather than the natural beauty of a world that no longer exists. Over time, collective memory of Earth's former state might fade, leaving only fragmented stories of a time when the planet was warm and vibrant. Despite these challenges, humanity would likely continue to search for solutions. Scientific efforts might focus on reversing the freeze, using advanced technologies to melt the ice and restore the oceans. However, such attempts would face monumental obstacles, not least the sheer scale of the frozen expanse. Even if technology advanced enough to begin the process, the timeline for success would span centuries or even millennia, far beyond the lifespan of any single generation. The Earth itself, in its frozen state, might stabilize eventually, but at great cost. A frozen planet could sustain some form of life, but it would be a shadow of what once existed. In this stark new reality, humanity's ingenuity, resilience, and ability to adapt would be tested like never before. Whether we would rise to the challenge or succumb to the harshness of this frozen world remains an open question. And so the story of frozen oceans is not just a tale of environmental collapse, but also a testament to the fragile balance of life on Earth. It serves as a reminder of the interconnectedness of our planet's systems and the need to protect them for future generations.